You are now listening to the Region 10 Report with your host, Susanne Posel from OccupyCorporatism.com, where the alternative media gets their news. This show will expose the elite domination plan, disinfo agents, propaganda, and the UN plan to strip the world of its freedom and the United States of its Constitution. This is the Region 10 Report with Susanne Posel, bringing you the real truth behind the news.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us. This is the Region 10 Report. I am your host, Susanne Posel, and I'm joined by my co-host, David Posel. If you want to follow us along on during the week, you can go to OccupyCorporatism.com as well as radio.OccupyCorporatism.com, and you can listen to any broadcast that you may have missed, or you can just share it with anybody that you know. You can also download us on iTunes or Spreaker, or listen to us on Blog Talk Radio, UCY.TV, as well as the Prepper Podcast Network. And for today's show, we are going to talk about internet trolls. We're going to talk about the U.S. government's U.S. Ignite, how they're going to control the internet. And I'm also going to bring up an article on RT where Julian Assange talked about the totalitarian government control over the internet. So we're going to talk about all of these things today, and thank you for joining us. So let's jump right into it. Now, we all know that the internet is controlled. Whether or not you are up to date or up to speed with reports that have been going on, the mainstream media has been talking about the National Security Agency that has been hiring basically hackers in order to troll the internet. They've been doing this for quite some time. Former CIA Director David Petraeus told at a summit of In-Q-Tel that he was speculating on the Internet of Things and how transformational information is overused, or the word itself is overused, and how he believes that technologies, when applied to surveying the general public on the Internet, is particularly effective in clandestine operations. So our government set up the NSA with the Utah Data Spy Center, and this is information that is a little bit older, but it's important to what we're talking about right now. It's set in the foothills of the Utah desert, and it is the centerpiece of the Global Information Grid, a military project that collects yottabytes of data. That is a massive amount of data that they are listening to every conversation, reading every post on the internet, not just Facebook, not just Twitter, but everything that is inputted into the internet, intercepting every text message, and under the guise of false flag or stopping terrorism. Mm-hmm. So we know that our government is doing this. They say that they are justified because they are looking for terroristic plans against finances and stock transactions, business deals, foreign military, diplomatic secrets, legal documents, and personal civilian communications. These are all the areas in which they are allowed to troll. And they're looking for elevated threat levels, according to the NSA. So whatever the government decides is a threat, they are allowed to then utilize fusion centers with the DHS, with the Department of Homeland Security, to create more effective profiles on each and every American citizen. And it doesn't matter if you're here in the domestic United States, because if you take your smartphone or your Android or your laptop or your tablet or your Kindle with you, you are taking your information with you, and therefore it's like taking your house with you. Your IP address is like your house. So they know where you are because you have all of this technology with you at every moment of the day. And they've all trained us not to go anywhere without our cell phone. God forbid you should get a flat tire, or you should need help on the side of the road. I remember a time when there were no cell phones, and there was always a payphone. I can't find a payphone nowadays, and I wouldn't even know how much it would cost. I remember when it was, a couple of dimes. Now it's, last time I used a payphone, which honestly, I think it was close to 10 years ago, it was 50 cents.
Yeah, that's probably well over $1.50 now. People were really getting pretty upset about that as it was. But, that technology, what they've done is they've reallocated it for these kind of projects. And they got rid of the old copper wires in favor of digital technology. And I hear in some places like Japan and China that the payphones that they have there are actually on the digital infrastructure. So it seems like they've definitely moved forward with that.
So even if you do find a payphone, it's connected to internet cables through fiber optic cables, right, and broadband.
Yeah.
So you're still on the internet. You're still being spied on. Now, at the same time that the NSA was building their super spy center in Utah, the Attorney General Eric Holder was setting up new guidelines to the National Counterterrorism Center. And these guidelines would allow this center to access data on American citizens once held under the right of privacy. Very interesting. We have our Constitution, and we have amendments to the Constitution which protect us from the right of search and seizure without probable cause and warrants. But our founding fathers had no idea and had no comment on technology and where technology would be. And so a couple of my friends in the alternative media, Pete Santilli being one of them from the Pete Santilli Show, he suggested that if we're going to make any more amendments to the Constitution, we might want to think about digital infrastructure to protect our privacy. Mm-hmm. And I absolutely agree with that, because the National Counterterrorism Center is collecting data and sharing information regardless of whether or not there's a terrorist threat, whether there's a viable threat, whether you have made any statements or any indications in any way, shape, or form on digital media that you are a threat to national security through terroristic means. They are sharing information and collecting data on you. And this is not J. Edgar Hoover's government. There's not a bunch of file cabinets somewhere in a room with some person, flipping through and collecting information on our actors and our actresses and other people in entertainment and all kinds of industries that they might want to question at a committee meeting for communism. Everyone is considered an enemy to the state. In fact, in the NDAA, they stated that the America is a battlefield. So what I'm going to do, folks, is I'm going to take a break. And when we come back, we're going to talk more about this. We're going to get into Julian Assange, and we're going to get into US Ignite. If you haven't heard about it, you're going to hear about it tonight. So we'll see you on the other side, folks.
UCY.TV. The future is in your hands.
Hello, folks. Thanks for coming back to us. This is the Region 10 report. Before we went to the break, we were getting into some history about how the government has postured themselves in order to create this network so that they have digital infrastructure that controls everything that we do in digital media. Regardless of whether or not you think you are, you're plugged into the internet. And so they have access to everything that you do, everything that you talk about, where you go. They know what your bank account is. They know whether or not you've deleted it, whether or not you've wiped your hard drive clean. They know. They can go into your computer and they can find out. And so I want to jump right back into what Eric Holder was doing with the National Counterterrorism Center, sharing all of our information, collecting it whether or not we are a viable threat to our government and national security under terroristic means. And this collaboration was with the local state officials, tribal courts, private corporations that deal in digital information are partnering with FBI, DHS, NSA, and Eric Holder under the National Counterterrorism Center. The Obama administration has further empowered the National Counterterrorism Center by authorizing, with the Presidential Executive Order of 13354, and I want everybody to look that up and read that. That is the Intelligence Reform and Terror Prevention Act of 2004. the National Counterterrorism Center reports directly to the president and the Director of National Intelligence, as instructed by the president and the Department of Homeland Security. Now, Senator John McCain, who was integral in the creation, he was one of the authors of the NDAA, he says that this creation is a combination of military strength and governmental power, culminating in an all-encompassing control over our digital infrastructure. So the government has employed private and public corporations. Now, this is what we talk about when we talk about the Trans-Pacific Partnership, where we have private corporations and public partnerships working with the government to employ mining of all kinds of data. Silicon Valley.
Now, wait a minute. Now, I have a question. Doesn't Stratfor sort of fit in right here what we're talking about?
Yes, Stratfor is a private corporation that is a cover for CIA operations here in the United States because, folks, the CIA is not allowed to do surveillance on Americans on domestic soil. However, they have employed a fake shell corporation called Stratfor, where they obtain a lot of intelligence and sell it to the government and to foreign nations. It's like the DoD working with Blackwater and DynCorp to go over to other nations and stabilize their population in the middle of a fake revolution that we started so that we can take over that country and install our patsy.
It's kind of like Bank of America and the MERS system.
Exactly. Or Bank of America creating their own insurance company and then selling you that insurance so that they pocket you twice.
Exactly.
So Stratfor is very integral in all of this data mining. And some of the websites that you frequent, even in alternative media. I've written an article on Alex Jones and Molly Maroney. Molly Maroney used to work for Stratfor. She worked there for almost a year. But she also worked for Parker Media, LLC. And Parker Media, LLC is run by Richard Parker. And Richard Parker used to be an executive at Stratfor. And still to this day, according to WikiLeaks documents, still receives emails as if he worked for Stratfor. And Molly Maroney and Richard Parker got together and wrote a white paper on cyber espionage and the U.S. government and China, where she explained in that white paper that the U.S. government had to use covert means by obtaining digital information by spying on people and websites in order to gather intelligence to decipher who was a threat and who wasn't.
So that plays in perfectly to this story.
Exactly. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you're curious, if you hadn't seen that article, it's gone all over the internet. You can go to occupycorporatism.com, and it's Alternative Media King hires CIA Stratfor agent as publishing editor-in-chief. And I have all of the documents to prove this. I know there's a lot of controversy going on about this, but I have all of the documents to prove it, including her resume, where she states where she used to work, Stratfor and Parker Media, LLC, as well as a link to the white paper that I just mentioned, so you can read it for yourself, folks. I always tell you in every broadcast, and I mean it wholeheartedly, please do the research for yourself. Yep. I can lead you to the water, but I want you to choose whether or not you want to take a drink.
You should actually do the research, though. I mean, you should want to do the research. This is real evidence. We actually have uncovered real, hard, solid fact, and there's no denying that.
And what's important about it is we look to the alternative media as the alternative to the mainstream media, where we know that we're getting propaganda. But when we're getting propaganda from the alternative media, because they have not just co-opted, but some of these alternative media outlets have been created to perpetuate propaganda. They'll give you half-truth. They'll give you a little bit of actual truth. And they will demand that you believe in their angle and their agenda on any issue that's extremely important, like 9/11.
Yeah.
Look into Dr. Judy Wood and look at what she has done with the actual evidence, what she presents. drjudywood.com, and I've given this website out before, and I'm going to do it again. wheredidthetowersgo.com, or look her up on YouTube and watch any one of her lectures. She only presents the evidence, and according to the evidence, it was not a controlled demolition. And we explained this on previous broadcasts. It was the use of directed energy weapons for the purpose of what we still have to determine, but we know that it was actually a testing and a successful test of energy directed weapons. And some people in the alternative media refuse to cover this. In fact, some people in the alternative media refuse to cover the connection between Alex Jones, Molly Maroney, and Stratfor. And those websites like the Intel Hub and Alex Thomas, they're lying to you. Jason Burmis. They have this information. Why? How do I know that they have this information? Because, ladies and gentlemen, I emailed it to them. I sent it to them. And you know what I was told by them? I was told that it was conjecture, that it was erroneous summations, and folks, he didn't use this good of a language. He didn't speak this well when he wrote back to me. But that's what he was telling me. I showed him direct links to Molly's resume, her white paper, and connections between all of these entities that I just spoke about: Stratfor, Parker Media, and Alex Jones. And Alex Thomas at Intel Hub said that it was all just my opinion.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And he won't cover that story.
Yep, Burmis won't touch it. And you've got to really consider this. These are real cold, hard facts. There's no denying this stuff. This is all set in stone, in record. It's been out there for years, and we've just uncovered it, and they don't like it.
They don't like it. Why? Because they have an agenda. They don't want you to know the truth. Why? Because it affects how many clicks they get on their website. Because it affects how they are able to bend your mind and control the information that you get. That's why we need to stick with independent sources of media. Sources of media that have not been co-opted. And folks, I promise you, I have not been co-opted. And I never will be. I walked away from Alex Jones and a paid member of to be a paid member of his writing staff. I walked away from that. I walked away from GCN, not GCN, but RBN. Right? I had a show on there, and I just walked away from that. Why? Because Stat Miller is co-opted, and I don't want to be part of that.
Mm-hmm. Stat Miller, Rents, Alex Jones, they all play this really fun little game where everybody else gets screwed and nobody really knows what's going on. And it all serves the larger purpose to the government and the CIA and these people right here that we're talking about.
Exactly. So the NSA, just to give you get back to what we were talking about, the NSA has a comprehensive program where they search out universities and schools for teams of American-grown hackers. The Obama administration has made it a concern of theirs that the future of cybersecurity rests on the laurels of college graduates of tomorrow. So the NSA is going out to college graduates who are getting degrees in IT technologies under the official Centers of Academic Excellence in Cyber Operations. And that's linked in my article here up on my website. The name of the article is CIA-Sponsored Trolls Monitor Internet and Interact with Users to Discredit Factual Information. And let me tell you guys, this article went viral. And so if you probably already ran into it, and I hope that you have. And if you haven't, I hope that you come to my website and look it up. Under this new comprehensive program, they are recruiting people with particular emphasis on technology and techniques related to specializing cyber operations. In other words, collecting, exploitation, and responding to. Okay, so I want to explain to you what that means, because we know that the DHS has the NICE program, the National Initiative of Cybersecurity Education, where Janet Napolitano wants to educate even kindergartners to become digital workers for the government. They want you to go into their DHS-sponsored U.S. Cyber Challenge and provide schools and universities and all forms of academia in the private sector under the control of the federal government allocated tools that would help develop the brightest and the best cyber talent to meet our nation's growing and changing security needs. This is what Napolitano wrote in her blog. So she has an honors program, the honors program for cybersecurity professionals. They are serious about this because they want to employ us as biochemical automatons to work for the state. Now, just to give you an understanding of the trolling aspect of this, because it's central to what we're going to talk about today for the rest of the broadcast. Now, according to Leanne Williams, who is a former CIA clandestine service trainee and DIA analyst. And the DIA is a branch of the government that doesn't get enough credit or talk about as much as the CIA, but I want you guys to go look up that too. So they use, the FBI and the CIA uses trolls to monitor all websites and interact with users to discredit information disseminated on the web. That means that when you go to Facebook or Twitter or any of these comment threads on any of these websites.
Before it's news.
I don't allow comments on my website, but I get tons of trolls on my Facebook page because I allow comments there. And so what Williams is explaining is that the CIA provides training videos to new recruits on how to troll the internet. That's actually their job. They get up in the morning and they go to work and they sit on the internet with, like, let's say 12 screens in front of them. They have 12 fake Facebook accounts, and they're trolling Facebook, looking for people that they can discredit.
Yeah, their purpose is to sit there and run the agenda of the government, and the government says, okay, now I want you to find anything where somebody is saying, okay, say this about Obama or that about the CIA or this about Stratfor, and I want you to go in there and make them look like idiots so that nobody believes what they have to say.
Right. So once they lock on a target, they get all open source information and obtain on the individual and any angle to discredit them in a public forum, on these social media sites, on these internet websites, on Twitter, on Facebook, on Reddit, on anywhere where you can post a comment and you can say to people in a public forum that this person has bad information. Because, ladies and gentlemen, just like with me and just like with Rosa Corey and just like with Dr. Judy Wood, it's never the information that they attack, at least in my experience. I have documented sourced information in my articles, and I work really hard to bring you the actual document. I search the web and look for it. I'm not satisfied in quoting a New York Times article or a Washington Post article where they mention the document from the DHS or the government or whatever. I go out and I actually find the document that they're talking about or the executive order and hyperlink it in my article because I want you guys to read. I want you to come along with the journey with me and learn what I've learned. But these people are equipped with software that they use to sift through mountains of users on social networking sites. And when I say social networking sites, I'm saying all media sites, really. I should just say all websites, because it's not just social media sites. But since we live and breathe on these social media sites, it's very important to us. So Williams explains that when she worked at the Atlanta branch of the CIA, she was trained personally, and she witnessed the CIA training and sanctioning trollers or operatives to troll the internet, looking, like David said, for any indication. They were given a parameter, and they were told to go find and discredit information. And this is important for you guys to understand, because when we think of trolls, we think of some idiot sitting in his mom's basement behind the screen, but that's not always true.
Those are just the free trolls.
Right, those are the ones that the government gets for free. We're also talking about being aware of the fact that these people are paid. That's their job to do this, and they do it very well. And they have a lot of dummy accounts all over the internet, and they will find you. They have names. They have targets. They're given names and targets to go after. And when you see that a particular person is being severely trolled, you really want to question, why is that person being attacked? And if you look at the information that they're disseminating and it's factual sourced information, then in my opinion, you might want to ask yourself, why is that information being discredited by the person bringing it to me when the information that's being brought is very good and could actually be helpful to me?
And if you do find that, you need to go and do that research. I mean, most people put source links in their articles or at the bottom or however they have their format set up. Every writer has their own thing. But if you're seeing that and the article you're looking at seems plausible, do the math. Look it up. Go to Google. That's what it's for. Check it out.
Right. The NSA set this up to troll us and to find out what we like and what we don't like. But let's use it against them. Let's turn it on their tables, and let's look for the information that they don't want us to see.
Yeah.
Let's find these papers and start bringing them to the forefront of the NSA and Google, so that when they go and they look and see what's most popular on Google, they'll find out that we're finding out about them.
Well, an educated free mind is the only thing that they can't break.
Right. So we've got the government discrediting targets, and you are targeted. If you're bringing factual information and writing articles like me, ladies and gentlemen, I have been on their troll list since back about almost 6 months ago now. I wrote an article on a banking virus explaining to people how the U.S. government and the banking cartels were going to use a banking virus to shut down the banks for an extended weekend. And this was my hypothesis. And in order to make sure that you couldn't do any banking transactions and destroy or delete your digital money that's in the bank. Now, a lot of people went and took their money out of the bank, because I went on the air on multiple radio shows and was talking about this on the SGT report and on Govern America with Darren Weeks and a whole host of radio shows talking about this. And I got my own professional troll. He wrote a fake DMCA notice of takedown to my hosting company 1&1 and had my website held hostage until I removed that article. Now that article, folks, had gone viral. I mean, it was all over the internet. When I Googled it, I had several million hits from websites all over the place, websites I had never even heard of. It was on all the major websites and all the small-time websites. So everybody and their mother had seen this article. So I was happy that at least the information got out there. But this troll tried to cause me a lot of problems. But folks, as soon as I threatened him with a lawsuit, he backed off. Why? Because his job was done.
Yeah, he lives in his mom's basement. We confirmed that. We actually did a very extensive background search on this guy and went to our attorneys. And, there's a lot to be said for that, too, because all of the information in that article was so damn accurate that they actually sent out a professional to us. And, hey, the guy's willing to take $1,000 and give up who he is as a person and his dignity and his honor. That's his problem. But for us, we're never going to do that.
I will never do that. I've written articles exposing things that I think are important. And it's not that there's a lot of information that I don't get to on my website, but folks, it's not that I don't know about it. It's not that I don't think it's important. But when you come to my website, I'm a big picture person. And I want to know about what's going on. I'm not interested in all the symptoms of the problems that we have. I'm interested in treating the actual disease. So I credit and I take pride in knowing the other websites are covering issues that are symptoms of the problem, while it's my job here in the alternative media to cover the big picture problem. And when we all work in tandem together in the alternative media, then we all make sense.
And that's what my job is here too, is to also provide the technical details of how the operation works and specifics, so that you can know exactly what to look for in the mechanics of this. Remember, our last podcast was about directed energy weapons, and I explained in great detail specifically how this works. And in this particular recording that we're doing now, it's going to be the same thing. We're going to explain to you exactly how this works, what to look for, and how to keep yourself safe.
Right. So I know that we are headed up to a break right now. So when we come back from this break, we're going to get into Julian Assange's interview on RT. And I want to explain to you how important this is. So come back with us. You are listening to the Reach in 10 Report.
Strive to be the voice of the voiceless, for those who stood up and spoke out for freedom and liberty. Get involved.
UCY.TV. The future is in your hands.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for coming back to the Region 10 report, and thank you for joining us for this information on trolls and the internet and how important everything is. Now, before we went to break, I told you that I would talk about this interview with Julian Assange and RT. On RT, the name of the title is, or the title of the article is Assange to RT, Entire Nations Intercept Online, Key Turn to Totalitarian Rule. And Assange goes on to explain that the people who control the internet and the inception of the internet, to some degree also the physical control of big data warehouses and internet fiber optic lines. But we think of, and when he says we, he's talking about everyone. Everyone has this idea that the internet is a platonic realm where we can throw out ideas and communications on web pages and books, and they exist somewhere out there. But actually, they exist on web servers in New York, Nairobi, or Beijing, and the information comes through satellites connected to fiber optic cables. Now, he also goes on to point out that whoever controls those servers in New York, Beijing, Nairobi, his examples, they control whether or not the information is disseminated out. And that is a serious deal. He explains that it's cheaper to intercept an entire nation rather than individuals. And then further, that it's cheaper to intercept everyone all at once rather than specific individuals.
Yeah, that's where we get to those really large server farms that we were just talking about in the first segment, where they take everything, all of your bandwidth through satellites and digital media and just the basic internet pipeline. They take everything, store every bit of it. Doesn't matter if you're on your cell phone, your iPad, your regular computer, your friend's computer, the library computer. It's all there, and they've got it.
Right. So Julian Assange goes into a great long, you should go to RT and listen to the interview, as well as they've got a transcription of it on RT. They talk about how Google knows and remembers everything that you do, every search engine that you've ever, every keyword that you've ever put into the Google search engine, they know. How when you update your profile on Facebook, you're actually tattling on everyone that you know. And every single time, and I see this all the time with people who are friends of mine who are not awake. And they say, oh, I was at this Starbucks on Main and Wilson, and I was here with my friend, ... and ... Well, they actually know exactly where you are. And then you tell them an hour later where you are at your next destination.
Right, you show up to a federal trial and you wonder how the hell they get the receipts for me being at that restaurant. Well, guess what, buddy?
Yeah, and just to let you know, in the court system, when you like something on Facebook, that has been entered into evidence against people, and it is viable evidence in a court of law.
Unfortunately so.
Comments on Facebook are used against you, as well as when you like something, a group or a page, that is used against you, and it's been evidentiary, and it's been successful.
Yeah, look at Brandon Robb.
That's just one example, but just everyday people. So this infrastructure, Julian Assange goes on to explain, it has been built, it has been created for absolute totalitarianism. And basically, the internet is a giant spy database. So everybody who is in control of these servers, these fiber optic cables, this broadband, just by the way, guys, when we get into US Ignite, I'm going to explain to you who is in control of all the US broadband. But Julian Assange explains that this spy database was created by the people who wanted to spy on you. And we were all just dumb enough to start using it. And so we are tethered to this thing, whether it's through our digital toys or our PC or our Mac or our tablet, whatever it is, we are tethered to this thing. And it's a massive state surveillance that appears to us invisible. And we don't think of it as nefarious in the respect that we use it so much that we're desensitized to what it actually does and how much harm it actually causes to society. And folks, if you're worried about privacy, and as a public figure, I do worry about my privacy to a certain degree, because I don't want any yahoos showing up on my front doorstep because they disagreed with an article that I wrote. But if we all want to make sure that we are 100% private in our lives, we have to stay off the internet.
Just unplug. I mean, your life's going to feel better anyway.
But one of the things I found so interesting about this Assange article was that Assange was brought up and raised in a CIA MK Ultra experiment in Australia called The Family. And one of the things that they wanted to teach these children, who later came out, and Assange is one of them, were to create disinformation agents. And I've spoken with this on many other broadcasts and probably in broadcasts here for you guys to listen to, but I'm going to say it again. Disinformation is not an outright lie. They don't outright lie to you. Alex Jones doesn't outright lie to you. Alex Thomas at Intel Hub doesn't outright lie to you. Jason Burmis at Intel Hub does not outright lie to you until they've got your branded loyalty, until you are no longer questioning their authority. Alex Jones says, I've been doing this for 17 years, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, well, he's been working with various nefarious agencies, and now we have a direct connection with him and Stratfor, which is a shell corporation for the CIA. So he's been doing this for 17 years. That means he's been spying on us and taking our ability to decipher information correctly. And when we go from the mainstream to the alternative media, he has been using that transition against us in order to get his agendas out. And his agenda, well, folks, it's whatever his handler tells him is his agenda.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot to be said about what they're not talking about as well. And we've done some experiments with this as well, where we take really, really good documented evidence,
like the Patrick Clausen article.
Yes, and we give it out to the heads of all of these large alternative media stations, and we look and we see who does and doesn't print that, and we make a note. And that's the easiest thing to look at. What they're also doing, not only are they telling you all of disinformation up front, but they're also not telling you real information on the backside.
And they know. Right, and they know the information. Like I said earlier in the broadcast, I email these people. I have the emails of all the heads of the major alternative news sites in my Outlook email.
Yeah, and not the cell phone number, right?
And not their, I have their number in my phone. And I email them when it's a really serious article that I want to get out. And I am very aware of who doesn't repost it, but I'm also very aware of the feedback that I get. And when I posted that article about Stratfor and Alex Jones and Molly Maroney, I got such backlash from the people who run these sites that you go to every day to get your information from, the people that you trust that are not skull-fucking you. Those people are lying to you because they know that there is factual, documented evidence linking Alex to Stratfor, and they are choosing not to put it on their internet, their website, or whatnot. Because they're not willing to talk about it on the radio show. Why? Because they don't want you to know.
They're playing the game. They're all in on it.
Right, and it's not just fear of Alex Jones. They are interested in keeping their sponsors. They are interested in making sure that they get clicks to their website. They're interested in making sure that Alex Jones will cover one of their articles on his InfoWars or Prison Planet. But by the way, folks, when you go to InfoWars and Prison Planet, Alex Jones drops a little tracking cookie, a little Trojan horse into your computer, and it tracks all of your data from the time you leave his website until the time you return. And when you return, it downloads all of that data into his server and reloads up the cookie, and as soon as you leave, on goes the cycle again, on and on and on in infinitum, unless you stop going to his website. Folks, I've done the research, and I will not click on Prison Planet or Infowars.com or even Planet Infowars because I don't want those tracking cookies in my computer. I don't want Alex Jones to know where I bank. I don't want him to know what my login is on Facebook. I don't want him to know what my login is on Twitter. I don't want him to know what websites I check out. I don't want him to know where I go to get any of my research. Not that I don't want him to know what I'm researching. I don't care. I'm more interested in getting information out, and anyone who wants to repost any of my articles can do so. And if you retain all of the hyperlinks, that's great. And if you give me some link love over it, that's wonderful too. But the information is more important to me. And it's more important to me that you know that the guy behind the screen who's trolling these websites is CIA, is NSA, is DHS, ordered by the president to troll you, specially trained to troll you.
Exactly. Yeah, it's absolutely true. And Alex Jones has shown this over time. I mean, yeah, he says he's been there for 17 years. And we're talking about, in the last 10 or so, since the passing of William Cooper, really, is when this whole thing really took a turn to the left. And I'm seeing it more and more. The more research you do, the more you see it. It's really obvious.
Yeah, the people who are being attacked the most are the people who are actually telling you the most truth. And that's why we've said multiple times in this broadcast, it's the small guys that you need to pay attention to. If there are links in that article, go and click on them. Don't just look at them and say, oh, they've got a lot of source links. No, actually click through. I have caught, Alex Jones has a writer that writes for him, and this is the only way that anyone would ever know about this person, because I did a background check on this person, and this guy, nobody knows about him, and thank God that Alex Jones picked him up, because he would still be a nobody to this day. But he's got a minuscule amount of fame and credit for being a writer for InfoWars, which means he's a disinfo agent, and I caught that man saying that the DOD had written a press release that was about deep population control. And it was actually about population stabilization using fake revolutions and Blackwater and DynCorp under the control of the Department of Defense to go in and destroy countries.
Right, and he's talking about birth control like an idiot. He's
talking about Kissinger and population control, how the DOD is coming up with new ways to make sure that we can't procreate. That's not true. He lied, because I clicked through his source link and I read the press release, and he lied. And then, now, he's become a troll. Go figure.
Yes, but when he states where he got his facts from, one of them is an underground Alex Jones website, and the other one is, guess what? The Cato Institute,
which is a globalist think tank.
Yeah, so that's where your information is coming from at Infowars.com.
And that's another thing. You want to look into all of these think tanks and find out where they came from. The Ludwig von Mises Institute, it was started by Rockefeller. Go look that up. Put that up in a Google search and find that out for yourself, because that's fact.
Mm-hmm. Rand
Paul. Go find out who Peter Thiel is. I wrote an article on him. I've got lots of links in there. I suggest you drill right through my article and keep going.
Mm-hmm.
I found out so much information on Peter Thiel and connections with Rand Paul and Ron Paul that I would have to write a series of articles on it.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have time.
And these are all the people that these same infiltrators are supporting.
So we've got, and then it goes back to also Julian Assange. You know what? When I listened to this interview with RT, and by the way, RT is state-sponsored by the Russian government. So is it controlled information? Absolutely. Is Julian Assange, who came from a CIA background, trained to be a disinfo agent, is he controlled opposition? Most likely. He's telling you that entire nations are intercepted online, and that there is complete control over the internet by these people who own these servers, and they can just shut them off and shut off all the information on the internet. So my question as an investigative journalist was, why is he telling us this? With the connections that he's got and the background that he's got, and he's on state-controlled, state-sponsored alternative media, quote-unquote, why is he giving us this information now at this critical juncture when we've got cybersecurity running rampant in our minds right now, because the government Obama's signing secret directive orders, and he's allocating control of the internet to the military, to DHS, to all sorts of federal agencies. And so we're worried that we will wake up tomorrow morning and the internet will be gone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, he's saying that it all goes through government satellites and through Raytheon controlled satellites anyway. So, it's already all out there, and we knew that. We covered that months ago, and that's exactly what's going on. But I would also like to question, what is he not saying in the middle of all of this?
That's true. So you have to question the source in which you're getting the information and the connections in which they have. But also, there's the old adage now in alternative media that the globalists, the Zionists, the controllers can't do anything without telling us about it first. Well, this might be an instance where they're telling us about it first, and they're using one of their information hubs, which is Julian Assange and WikiLeaks, because everybody trusts it. Everybody trusts Anonymous, but Anonymous shows up to make things worse for us.
Yeah.
Anonymous shows up to mess with the banks, and now the banks are talking about having secret technocratic networks where they're going to have all the banking information allocated to them, and you won't have access to your banking information.
Isn't that
Anonymous shows up and says that they're going to start shutting down websites in Syria against the Syrian government, when the proxy war that's being funded and by the UK, by the US, by the Zionist Israelis, this is a problem. And whose side is Anonymous on?
Right. It only serves those interests, and that's what's very interesting about it.
Anonymous was directly linked to LUSEC, and they said that they were infiltrated by the CIA. Well, let me tell you, folks, the word infiltrated, you can scratch that out and put sponsored. Okay? They're not infiltrated. The Anonymous, these hackers, they didn't hack into the IRS and get information from the technocrat den themselves, from Ben Bernanke. The IRS is the Federal Reserve's collection agency. Nobody hacks into their website. I don't believe that for a second. They were handed information about Mitt Romney to help discredit him. Why? Because this is planned opposition. This is controlled opposition. And as long as we believe the fairy tale, we are never going to see that the buildings were dustified. We're always going to think, oh, it was nanothermite. We don't even check in to see that nanothermite is aluminum and iron, which are the same constituent elements of the building itself. We are uneducated. We don't think for ourselves. We regurgitate the garbage that we hear from everyone that we look up to. Stop it.
Do the research. Do the research yourself. Really, you need to look out there.
So where is this all culminating? US Ignite. And I am writing on this, and I will continue to write on this, because US Ignite is under your radar. While you are distracted by mainstream propaganda, the Obama administration is announcing that under the Office of Science and Technology Policy, in conjunction with the National Science Foundation, they are bringing together government-controlled internet, and they have called it US Ignite. And US Ignite seems so innocuous, because right now it's like, oh, it came out of nowhere, and it's not, it couldn't possibly do anything. But ladies and gentlemen, in June of this year, President Obama signed an executive order entitled Accelerating Broadband Infrastructure Deployment. What does that mean? Let me explain to you what it means. He is creating a situation where all the broadband deployed on federal lands, buildings, and rights-of-way, federally assisted highways, tribal and individual Indian trust lands, which is tribal lands, and particularly underserved communities. So that's everything. All the broadband in the continental United States is under the control of the U.S. government through Obama, through this executive order. And they will create a private-public partnership, there we go, the PPP, in areas of national security as defined through education, all of the internet education. And I'm not just talking about Phoenix Online, folks. When you send your kid to go be indoctrinated in your public schools, he's working online. And then when he goes to college, he's working online. So all of that information, and when he goes to write his reports and his thesis, he's working online. So they control all of it. It's not just indoctrination. It's complete control. Workforce deployment or development, advanced manufacturing, health. All of your healthcare is digitized. When I was a little girl, my mother worked for the healthcare industry, and she worked with files, actual files. Well, now everything is digital. Transportation, public safety, clean energy. And this is a collaboration of the private sector corporations and federal agencies with the goal of linking universities and growing a number of communities of networks that are 10 to 100 times faster than today's residential broadband. Well, doesn't that sound wonderful, Dave?
Mm-hmm.
So we get faster broadband, but it's complete Big Brother. Complete Big Brother.
It's the Trojan horse.
And this project is funded by the NSF. And it is a... well, you know what, folks? Before I get into another explanation, before I go into more detail about US Ignite, let's take a very quick break. And we will come back on the other side, and I will wrap this up, and I will explain to you how dangerous all of this is for you. Don't go away.
I'm Madison Rupert, host of End the Lie Radio here on UCY.tv every Monday at 7 p.m. Pacific and 10 p.m. Eastern. Tune in and listen to some wonderful programming.
UCY.tv. Be there or we release the hells.
Hi, folks. Thanks for coming back with us. In the few remaining moments that we have here, I just want to explain to you what US Ignite is and how deadly and dangerous this is. And I'm not over hyping this at all, because we've been talking about how the US government is going to control the internet. And we've been talking about it so much that we've become desensitized to it. But this is a $40 million investment to improve, through US Ignite, our infrastructure, our digital information, which is government-sponsored internet. This is the future. And it creates a digital highway to be controlled and manipulated by the U.S. government through next-generation networks, universities, cities, healthcare offices, transportation, all other aspects of daily life, all for all Americans, are to be connected on this U.S. Ignite. And I'm saying this over and over again because I want you guys to look this up and go to my website and read the articles, but go farther. The NSF is empowering GENI, GENI, to create a prototype with experimental parameters that will satisfy the U.S. government's desire to transform cybersecurity. This is a word that we've heard before, right, folks? Network performance and cloud computing research. That's when you are using any communicative information systems like Skype and cloud computing. We know that they are recording this, but they're also using it to with jumpstart applications for what they call a profound societal and economic impact. Isn't that wonderful? Now, I also want to bring up the fact that the UN has been carefully posturing themselves to be able to implement new technologies in Africa. And they have been focusing on immense amounts of satellites and equipments to create a new technological hub in Africa. So we're not just seeing the land grab for our agricultural purposes. We're also seeing a land grab so that the UN can make Africa, like I said, not only the food center of the world, but also the single processor of the world's communications. And this is funded and supported by the World Bank. Is anybody surprised here? That Africa is being turned into a centralized internet epicenter, where all of the flow of the information and communications are under the UN governance. So we've got Julian Assange talking about totalitarian rule on the internet, and we've got Barack Obama setting up US Ignite in the background, allocating all the broadband, talking about cybersecurity, scaring the living daylights out of everyone, wondering whether or not they're going to have their internet. And what's the biggest picture of all? UN global governance over all information and communications on the internet. That's the end game. So we've got the UN's International Telecommunications Union, which is a group, a UN globalist agency that is designed to decide whether or not, or when, rather, they will be able to control the internet. And they're meeting this month in December, on the 12th. And they're going to discuss how they can finally put a stranglehold on the entire internet. So, under the Broadband Communication for Digital Development, the UN's Millennium Development Goals will be met as a universal portal to become the centralized broadband internet provider of the world. So, yeah, I'm worried about what Obama's doing in his office there, being all communist and stuff. And I'm worried about the disinformation trolls that are out there attacking me for telling the truth, and others of my peers who are honest and bringing you factual, sourced information. And I'm concerned about how many people are still being skull-fucked by people like Alex Thomas at Intel Hub and Alex Jones and all of these people who lie to you, who know that he's got connections to Stratfor and who bury it because they still want the clicks. They still want the opportunity to lie to you because they don't want you to know the truth because you won't go to their website anymore. And then they're going to lose their funding. Oh, boo-hoo, they're going to lose their sponsors. Meanwhile, you're being lied to, and then you're regurgitating this information to your friends and passing around their articles on the internet as if it's factual truth information, and it's all controlled agenda disinformation. So we've got the Obama administration creating the International Strategy on Cyberspace, and this makes the international governance policy priority. Obama is not just going to control the internet here domestically. He is posturing the control over the internet so that when it comes to the international control over the internet, the UN just has to call him up and say, hey, did you get that ready? And Obama says, yeah, I got that ready for you. I got it right here. It's the International Strategy for Cyberspace. Obama claims that the internet is a strategic national asset. Really? Really? Is that like the World Heritage Sites that are owned by the UN? So there are large, massive amounts of the United States that are owned by the UN. It's not even ours. Go to the Grand Canyon. It's not ours anymore. Guess what? Neither will be your internet, thanks to Obama. Now let's go full circle. I mentioned this earlier. Obama has signed a secret policy directive that gives the military control over the internet should the U.S. come under cyber attacks. Well, thanks to anonymous and CIA-sponsored hackers, we have a cyber attack threat. So go figure. There's your dialectic there. There's your Hegelian dialectic. Problem, reaction, solution. They created the problem. We're all freaking out over it. And they've got the solution. You know what it is? The International Strategy for Cyberspace, which is international governance over policy priority. Ladies and gentlemen, I have to go, and I wish I had more time to talk to you. But let me just say this one thing before I go. You know that when you get on the internet, when you get on your digital device, you're being monitored. Okay? That's a given. Don't say anything that you wouldn't want everyone to know. Please. That's the only thing I can say. You're not going to not go on the internet. I'm not going to not go on the internet. But the other thing is, check the resources and the facts behind what is going on. And when you're going to these websites, these quote-unquote alternative news media websites, because they are lying to you.